Finally, it's here, our MDE.next, your mobile data capture solution for Sage SDMO based on Android. My name is Thorsten Piel. I am a consultant at abacus-EDV-Lösungen, GmbH & Co. KG. And today I will be presenting our MDE.next to you. Why Android as the operating system? It's simple. It's modern, future-proof, stable, and significantly faster with suitable devices. Additionally, it allows us to implement current developments into our software more quickly. To my right, you can see some of the devices currently available on the market. For example, a scanner the size of a smartphone, as well as useful accessories like a pistol grip to make scanning more ergonomic and more robust devices to meet your requirements in the warehouse or production. If you have any questions about which devices we recommend, feel free to reach out to us. Over the past few months, we've had the opportunity to test various manufacturers and their models, so we're happy to provide recommendations for you. Furthermore, the topic of UI and UX was important to us, meaning both the operation and the interface, simply because, especially for companies and employees who are already using our MDC, we wanted to keep the learning curve low so they can quickly get accustomed to the new software. In other words, we've kept many design elements, but in a fresh, modern look. And we've also integrated a lot of new features like photo documentation, which we'll be happy to demonstrate later. Moreover, if you don't intend to immediately replace all your MDC devices with Android, it's possible to operate both our current MDC and MDE.next in parallel. So you can use both versions and different devices within your company. Offline operation is still possible too. So if you have warehouse sections or even an entire warehouse without Wi-Fi coverage, you can still continue to use the MDC there. Of course, data is transmitted in real time. That means, for example, if you want to see which employee is currently working on which production order or which picking process, you can view it directly in the Sage system. Or if you've just made a withdrawal from a pallet and scan the pallet again, you'll be shown the current stock level. Let's move on to our small manufacturing business. We're a small manufacturer that, among other things, produces trail mix for our presentation. That means we have the classic workflow. We purchase raw materials, so we have goods receipt and place orders with our suppliers. We have the topic of production. That means we'll also go through a production order later, and then we have a corresponding delivery note. In other words, we would sell our trail mix to our customers. Let's start with logging into the software. So here I have my login screen where I can go to the magnifying glass symbol in the start menu, select the right employee, enter a password, or I can use something like an employee card and an RFID chip. So I just need to hold it up to my scanner. The scanner reads the chip, and I'm immediately logged in as the warehouse employee, so I can get started right away. In this case, as a warehouse employee, we have certain functionalities, restricted ones, so that I can, for example, make transfers, withdrawals, and entries in the warehouse, but I can, for example. I also can't process goods receipts. The system will notify me that I don't have the necessary permissions. As usual, you can set up user profiles and permissions, specifying which employees or which departments are allowed to use which functions in your system. I'll quickly switch back to the login and log in as an administrator. So now we have the full functionality and I can process a goods receipt. To do this, I go to purchasing and then goods receipt. And now, using this list, here I see the open target documents, meaning all open orders for which I am expecting a goods receipt. And I can now see, okay, 20. February at my door, that is in front of the goods receipt warehouse. The supplier, Anders Pinneberg, is here with the goods for me, and I could now select this document, or perhaps the employees have the order slips in paper form with a barcode that I can scan so I can process the transaction right away. In our case, I'll simply select the supplier and can start directly with the first item. That means we would first process the cashew nuts item. That means I'll enter the item number here. You can theoretically pre-reserve it as well. In this case, I have an additional check to ensure I actually have this item in front of me and am entering it. Confirm with enter. In this case, it's a variant item. I'll just select the base item now. And let's say out of the 1,000 kilograms delivered, for example, one pallet weighs 500 kilograms. So I enter 500 and confirm with enter. And in this case, it's also a batch managed item. That means I open the batch dialog and would now create a new batch for this item. In this case, you see it's automatically filled in. That means this item has a predefined batch rule that's applied. This can be sequentially numeric or perhaps from goods receipt plus 2 months. That's entirely up to you, depending on how you've set it up in our traceability module. Otherwise, you always have the option to overwrite this batch. For example, by entering the supplier batch if you want to use that instead. Otherwise, I can also manage the supplier batch as an external batch at any time. So I can see in my batch information which internal batch is linked to which supplier batch and especially which goods receipt it came from. Now we still need to enter an expiration date. So basically the date up to which this item is allowed to be used for my production. For example, I'll enter the 31st July, click on done, and as a result, I have now assigned this stock for my 500 kilograms, my only pallet at the moment. And in this case, I now have a batch. In this case, as you can see, the remainder is 0. I could theoretically have created multiple batches at once, but here I've only created one batch for one pallet. So the remainder is 0, and I click confirm and could now, for example, receive the next 500 kilograms, meaning the next pallet. As you can see, there's a new icon at the bottom right. That's our so-called shopping cart. Here you can see which items have already been recorded and which are still open. So that means I can see here the cashew nuts, 500 kilograms, my first pallet, and my still open position. For example, here the almonds that I still have, which I can now continue to, let's say, pick or commission. So we can continue this process all the way to the end. But for now, I'll just click save. Say I want to save the document anyway, even though my target quantity hasn't been reached yet. So this gives me a message that the goods receipt is still incomplete. I know that, so I'll go ahead and click save. Choose a storage location again where I'd like to book the item. So my goods will go into main warehouse 01. And that saves my goods receipt for the first pallet. And now, ideally, if you're working with our traceability, a label would come out, which I attach to the corresponding goods, and my storage location, and accordingly this pallet. So in this case, it's now stored in warehouse 01. What other options do we have in goods receipt? For one, since the document is still open, it will be available again with the remaining open target quantities after it's processed. And now, if, for example, something's wrong with the goods, say there's a damage, I can use the camera icon in the middle. For example, if something's wrong with the packaging and I'm already conducting a quality inspection, like a visual inspection at goods receipt, I can document it with a photo. In this case, I'd open the Android device's camera and, for example, take a photo if there's a break somewhere. Just take a picture and save it. This photo is automatically attached to the document, so you can see that there's documentation for these goods receipts for this supplier. So that means we're now finished with our goods receipt and we'll make a standard transfer since our cashew nuts might be needed for production now. That means I go to the warehouse section, select transfer once, and now I would simply scan the label. The software then knows accordingly where its storage location is. I would confirm the quantity again now, and in this case I would simply specify the destination warehouse. Again here, the goods basket. So theoretically you can also perform several transfers in one process. In this case I've only made one. Let's click on Save, and my goods are transferred from the Hauptlager to the Produktionslager. So within a few seconds I've transferred my goods without having to do this in Sage and do everything via warehouse movements. Good. So now we might already have our cashew nuts fully produced, and we already have orders, so a customer wants this product. Which means we would now create a delivery note. For this we go to Sales, Delivery Note, and here we select the customer we want to deliver to. In this case, the customer has bought an item from us. Abacus Trail Mix, 75 grams, 20 pieces. 20 Stück. And fittingly, I even have a bundle here with 20 pieces in a box. That means I would simply scan the shipping unit here under Article. I would be shown the corresponding quantity that is on the shipping unit. I would confirm with Enter, and once I'm done, I get notifications that all items are processed and the document can be saved. Let's do that. I'll save the document, yes. And the delivery note is done. The delivery note gets printed, can be enclosed, and that's it for the delivery note part. Now let's move on to production. If you are a company that also produces with inventory management and MDC, I also have the usual option here to make my corresponding material feedback. That is, my completion reports or time recordings. We'll start with the latter, time recording, where I can again select an employee. For example, if shift 1 is the regular account, but there are other employees in this shift, I can select an employee separately. I'll just keep going as admin and start my production order, which I have here with the number 249, which I can enter or scan. I see the production order, my start time, I hit start, and the time recording for this order runs in the background. I can also do this for certain work steps where I record how long it takes, for example, to label the jars, or generally to fill them if I need that for my feedback or for my post calculation. Highest. So I've started my time recording, and now I want to pick my raw materials for this production order. Again, I can either choose from the list or scan the production order. Here's my production order. I see which items and how many I need to pick, and I can start, say, with the almonds, or open the goods basket and take the item that's closest to me. Let's just take the raisins here. I'd scan the shipping unit, confirm the quantity I've taken. The scanner immediately knows from the shipping unit label which batch I am, and accordingly I could then immediately proceed to the next position. We also have multi-picking available. That means I can do a material withdrawal, goods receipt, or delivery note with several employees at the same time, so you know it's possible to process a production order with multiple users on several devices. So here's another control step. I go to the goods basket, see my item, this time marked green because my target quantity is fully met, and which items I still have left to pick. Again, a quick note here. We also have a path guidance system where I get recommendations on the scanner based on the warehouse layout, telling me which item is closest according to the system. So when I've picked all my materials, I can do my completion report and select the production order again. and see. 5 pieces are to be produced in total, and we still have 5 open. That means nothing has been done so far. Select the order, and I can start by saying instead of 5, I might have produced a quantity of 3. Just confirm by pressing enter. This is a batch managed item. Here as well, I automatically assign a batch based on the batch rule. With the corresponding batch date, for example, valid until 31st of January 2024. Click on Done, confirm everything, and by saving, I would have my completion notification for 3 jars with 2 still open, which I can, let's say, complete later. When I've done everything, I go to my time tracking, select an employee again, go to started time recordings and select the time recording for production order 92. And now I can say, please stop once. My time is finished and my relevant times are now recorded in the feedback for this production order. Yes, production is finished and I have several documents we can take a look at. For example, I can use the scanner to perform a storage location inquiry. That means I would now scan the main warehouse here and it would show me, do we have the items with the right quantities that are supposed to be in stock? Or I can also use all this to release or block batches, for example. Or for labeling, with which I can create pallet or item labels, or if an old label is a bit worn, I can print a new one and attach it to the goods. That's it for the main features in our MDE.next. Thank you for listening, and yes, I'm already looking forward to the next projects with you.